This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information. Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, it's been over a year since we launched the podcast, and over that time, we've met over 50 different experts and practitioners and covered topics as wide-ranging as AI all the way over to leadership and management. However, in all of that time, I haven't once spoken to one of the key clients of HR, the hiring and line managers, and about how they view the partnership with HR and their HR business partners. And today is a day that we put that right. Yes, today we're going to delve into HR from the business's perspective. Our guest today is Roger Turvey. He's the operations director for Paragon Customer Communications. And as you'll hear in the interview, he's a passionate people leader and sees the HR business partners as a really key ally in getting the most out of his team. Roger, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Felix.
Well, it's great to have you on, and obviously you and I know each other. But I wonder if you could just start by introducing, give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, and I guess where you work, what kind of business it is, what your role is, and just to give everyone a bit of context from where you're approaching this relationship from.
Yeah, thanks, Felix. So I'm Roger Turvey. I'm the operational director in the BPO sector of Paragon. So that's inbound communications. And before then, I spent a long career in Royal Mail, and both organisations have different challenges. With Royal Mail, heavily industrialised company with industrial relations challenges, and that brings a certain skill set in terms of dealing with people and having to work hard to gain the respect and indeed be able to engage with people. So one of the reasons why I think you wanted to talk to me was because I had to work very closely with my HR business partners and what, as I say, work very hard in terms of how we engaged our people and how we connected to them. Latterly, of course, I'm in a non-unionised environment, and I felt like working for Royal Mail was almost a rehearsal for actually being able to implement some of the ideas that I had into a company that the people certainly were very receptive to some of the ideas that we had practiced in Royal Mail. So a long answer to a short question. Operational director for a long time now, but with a heavy emphasis, as you mentioned at the start, in terms of people leadership and understanding how important that is to the success of any organisation.
And I think that's really important. Just for that final bit of clarity, I guess, within your role, I think you cover people in all sorts of different jobs. So you mentioned unionized, not non-unionized, but we're talking people right from minimum wage to sort of HQ team members as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've managed many different size teams from up to 5,000 indirect reports to just a small handful. I've managed teams that I can touch and feel every single day, and I've managed teams that have been remote across the whole country. So, very very different roles and different experiences of managing different sized teams and demographics.
And that's why I thought it'd be so interesting to talk about how you've engaged with HR over your career. So I know this is maybe a bit of a broad question, but where have you seen the key areas that, I guess, in your experience, that you've relied on HR to add value into, I guess, to supporting you in an operational leadership role?
Yeah, so there's a few areas where I look for in a partner in HR. I think the biggest area, there's two areas, and they are the spark in terms of giving you ideas in terms of engagement. And I talked about engagement earlier on, and no, I haven't got the best ideas. You need a really strong HR business partner to create that spark. But secondly, also, I feel like they need to be your governance and ensure that you're following the right road. You can sometimes get carried away with yourself. You can sometimes have ideas which are perhaps not within the HR policies of the company, and they can help steer you on the right path, but also make sure you implement your ideas in a slightly different way. In terms of functionally, recruitment is always a real important part of a HR business partner. Again, I come back to engagement strategies, and I point to the particular example when I was managing 5,000 people, and how you make them feel like you know them personally across the whole geography, and they can help you. The HRBP can help you do that, and of course the other very vital area, and all of that underpins this part of the job, and that's managing attrition and slowing attrition and keeping the place a great place to work. Which means that people want to stay with you. Just that last point that you made around people on minimum wage, people certainly where I work now don't stay here for the wages. They can get the salary elsewhere in different jobs. They stay here because they want to stay here, because they enjoy the job that they do, and they're infused by the job they do. So that's a real key part, certainly of the way I try to lead, but also how I interact with my HRBP.
Yeah, I guess that's that engagement point so important, and I guess it's a really interesting one to highlight, the fact that there are two sides to the same coin, right? There's the engagement piece, which is, survey after survey show that the single biggest factor in ensuring that a team is engaged and that they stay in the organization is their relationship with their manager.
Yeah.
But I suppose HR is responsible for the broader systematizing of that engagement piece. So I wonder whether you could give us maybe a little bit of an example of where you lead on HR and where you lead on your own management style, or where you lean on the managers within your sort of broader team.
Yeah, so I'll take Sunderland as an example. So it's a reasonably large site. 290 people work at Sunderland, and it was a piece of advice, and all of my tips and techniques are not tips and techniques that I've dreamt up. They're stuff that I've stole from other people. But one of the tips and techniques, just a very simple one, is get to know a couple of things about each person. So, prerequisite is to get to know everybody's name. That obviously breaks barriers down. That's a base level. But actually, I attend every induction session that we have, and we broadly have about one a month with 5 to 10 people. I meet the guys on the first day, and I get to know a little bit about the guys on day one, so that when I walk around, I've got something to link that name to their personality, and it just creates a connection for me in terms of me being able to take barriers down, so they feel comfortable about talking to me. They sometimes feel intimidated talking to the operational director, but it also connects me, and when I'm drawing on them to help me later on, during challenging times, then they're more likely to relate to me as the lead and want to work for me. Now, there's also behind that a lot of mechanics that goes on with HR, and there'll be my prompt around significant events for those individuals. Birthdays, I write everybody a birthday card. Personally, we ensure, HR will ensure that significant birthdays are celebrated, significant milestones are celebrated. They'll use intelligence to ensure that I'm aware of any significant life events that people have. So all of that, there's the mechanics from a HR point of view. I'm just reaping the rewards of that, making sure that I'm connecting with people and they're working for me, essentially, in the team.
And I guess that management style of finding out personal things about your team, and I guess acting on those. We often say at my business, the small things are the big things. You remember someone's anniversary, you remember someone's birthday, and it sort of, as you say, it goes a long way. Is that something that's part of the culture that HR have helped build at Paragon, or is that the sort of Roger Turvey way of managing, or a bit of both?
It's a bit of both, Felix. I would say, as I say, none of my ideas are new. They're ideas that I've taken from other people. But remember, I spoke about the spark. So I can have a base of an idea. I can get to know people's names. I can get to know stuff about them. But actually, they will come up with another element to that and spark off of me in terms of, well, let's think about other events. That then converts into other ideas like cultural events, like celebrating different diversities in the site, and that's where HR do the real legwork for me, in terms of, we can sit in a room, I can have these mad ideas. Sometimes HR will tell me that's not a good idea because it goes against policy, as I said earlier on. But then HR will take that and run with that idea, and I just turn up on the day and celebrate the cultural event that is. So they provide the spark. I provide a bit of imagination, and then they do the mechanics to make sure that all looks as seamless and as informal as possible.
And what kind of role do you think that HR should play in terms of giving you data and insights around your workforce that can help you be a more effective lead?
So I'm a data junkie. I live on data, and every piece of data that I might get, I will ask for more data behind it. There's always a different element to any data. I'll give you an example of that. So this time last year, we had quite high attrition levels. I talked about the engagement approach that we've taken, but actually we also started to think carefully about who was it we was bringing in. And that, it's not the obvious answer. So I'm not talking about those that perhaps don't fit the organisational culture. It could be those that we think fit the organisational culture, but actually their ambition is far beyond what we can offer. So I exaggerate to make a point. Bringing in a nuclear scientist from university is not a great fit for our company. They're gonna spend a few months in our company and then decide it's not for them. So we did a bit of what we called red flag recruitment analysis, and what we did was we started to look at actually our levers and understand our levers and why they were leaving. And we did some analysis, and I'll give you a very easy example of that analysis where I think HR are just brilliant and can change the direction that you're heading. So we looked at postcodes recruitment, and obviously the further away from a site, we're a minimum wage site, the further away from the site that we go, the more likely that person is not going to stay with us, because the cost of travel is going to outweigh the salary that they're getting. But actually, we noticed in one of our postcodes that the attrition was higher. So we did a bit of analysis into that, and what we discovered, and it won't be peculiar to the northeast, is transport links were really poor in that part of the world. So whilst it was close, relatively close, the transport links, there was no bus links, there was no train links, so the only way that people would get to work is car. So we did a bit of analysis on that as well to understand transport arrangements. So now that shapes our recruitment strategy. And what I mean by that is we're not going to stop those people from joining us, but we're certainly going to ask 2 or 3 more questions of people in that part of the world about how you're going to get to work, how you're going to cost that in, etc., etc. So that for me, and we call that the sweet spot of recruitment, and we're doing a load more of that. But that for me is real HR value add in terms of pointing you in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I'm sure, and that's one of the amazing things about so much readily available data these days, isn't it? That there's, you're really able to pull out these insights that can be so helpful for recruitment, but across the whole organization. So it sounds like you work sort of hand in glove with your HR team, your HR business partner. I wonder if you could give some advice on how you get the most value out of that relationship.
So without offending all my other business partners, I see the HR business partner as the closest business partner, because it underpins everything that you're trying to achieve in your organisation. So therefore, they are the closest to me in terms of decision making on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. They are the compass for me in terms of whatever decision we make, be that commercial, be that customer based. The people have got to come with us. Simon Sinek has done a video, which again, I say I take stuff from people. The why message, the why, what, how message.
I think I've got the book here.
That's it. Yeah, and I see HR fundamental to that why part of the question, and you only get that by working in synergy with HR. But also, you've got to have a mutual respect that if they say no, you've got to listen to why they're saying no, and either adapt your approach or change it altogether.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, obviously, as I said at the beginning, I have a lot more HR practitioners on than people in your role. And one of the themes that we talk about quite a lot is in, I guess, the function's desire to be involved earlier in decision-making processes. So not just at the, I want to do this, can you get the team on board? But here's the problem. Can you help me to solve around that? I wonder, is that where you engage your HR business partner, sort of at the problem stage rather than sense checking the solution?
Yeah, I guess there's not an easy answer to that question, Felix, because it depends on the development of the HRBP. So there's some HRs, and by definition of HRBPs, they tend to be quite new into the organisation. So a more mature senior HRBP, absolutely, they're knocking on my door, asking me to follow a path that they're setting, and that's the ideal situation. But what you do find is that a lot of HRBPs are looking for you for inspiration as much as you looking for them for inspiration. There's nothing better for me than a good HRBP, seeing the potential in that HRBP, and then seeing that potential start to materialise, and you see it over a number of years. It's not an easy progress. So again, to summarise, depends on the level of the HRBP, but I'm delighted when I get an HRBP knocking on the door and telling me where they think I should be taking the team.
Brilliant. And just, I guess, to take that further into, I guess, your broader career, what do you wish, looking back, that the HRBPs, HR functions generally, are there one or two things that you wish they knew about the way that, I guess, the business or managers, department heads, fill in the blank there? I guess the other side of the coin. Do you think there are a couple of things that you wish that they actually knew about the role on the functions that they're supporting?
So yeah, I think so. Before being operational director, I became from an operational background, and I think there's two elements. Now, a good HRBP will have this anyway. This is more a general point, and that is, look, no one comes to work to do a bad job. No manager comes to work to do a bad job. And sometimes I feel that operations get a bad rap in that the decisions that they make sometimes are looked on with an element of suspicion, and as I say, a good HRBP will have a rounded view of that and understand that there's certain challenges and tensions on an operational manager that sometimes gives them the wrong decision, or actually gives they're doing the right decision. It's just a decision that the HRBP doesn't agree with. And then the other element, I guess, would be commercial realities sometimes of an organisation, and and I've had a recent conversation with a HRBP who challenged that we didn't pay enough, and that we should pay more, and that would improve culture. And of course, that's driven by the commercial success of the organisation. And actually, I don't agree with that, because you can do a lot of stuff, as I spoke to you early on about. You can do a lot of stuff with people that actually the salary isn't the prime motivator. The prime motivator is that they're enjoying the time that they're at work.
Yeah, and different horses for different courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
When it comes to those sorts of things. So yeah, um, I was hoping we'd have time for it. I think we do. I'd be really interested, if you wouldn't mind, just spending a little bit of time talking about what it was like dealing with the unions, and what that relationship was between yourself, your HR counterpart, and the union, because it's certainly a relationship that not many people get to, not many people in the sort of leadership roles get to go up against. But I could imagine it was quite challenging.
So I struggled in my early part of my career to understand the motivation of the trade union, and it caused me some friction with the trade union. There was an individual that very early on in my career that I come across, and we had significant battles together. And then we had a really full and frank personal conversation, and I realised that that person, who was a proper trade unionist, in my opinion, was coming from a completely different political background, and was and his motivations weren't dishonourable; they just differed to mine.
Mm.
Once I realised that, and understood where that person was sitting, and then everybody else in terms of the trade union, then I understood more how to deal with trade unions, and that was, what is it that they need from me, and what is it that I need from those guys. It it still created friction right across my career, but it helped me when individuals came in, and I didn't personalise the issue against the trade union in individual. Just one positive story that I'll just share with you, Felix. During COVID, it was a difficult period, and I would typically talk to the trade union once a week, possibly once every
Wow.
fortnight. During COVID, in the early days, we needed the trade unions to convince the staff that we were actively working to protect them. And there was a lot of fear, as everybody will remember, during that time, dark days, where seeing someone 10 yards away filled you with fear. And we was asking our people to do that every day during the COVID times.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to my senior rep 3 times a day. And what that did, that built a personal relationship between the two of us, but it also showed me how they can be invaluable at convincing their people that we're doing the right thing. And we took that on over the next couple of years in Royal Mail to build much stronger relationships at that time.
Yes, that must have been unbelievably challenging. But it's so interesting how often it comes back to this. But just taking that time to have that personal conversation, and it's not easy to understand where someone's coming from politically if you are if that's just not how you think. So it must have been it must have been fascinating to have been through those challenges, those relationships.
Yeah, and as I say, again, going back to the previous point, there's strong and there's weak trade union members. There's people that are in it for themselves, of course, so you're going to get that. But I found that understanding their political viewpoint, I didn't agree with it, but I understood it, helped me in negotiations with them.
Well, I'm really glad we had time to cover that at the end. Roger, thank you so much for coming on. It was really brilliant to get to get your perspective on it, and I think a lot of the audience will be really pleased to see how much you value that HR relationship. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your experience.
No, thank you. You're very welcome. Have a fantastic day.